Hey everybody, Randy here in the Eastwood garage with another live video demonstration. Today it's plasma cutter troubleshooting. So I've got Andy here. He's going to demonstrate some cutting with the plasma cutters, show you some of the supplies you need, show you what to look for if you're having some issues. Usually it's just consumables. He's going to go over all that. And if you have any questions, as always, Scotty C's here. Scott, why don't you turn on that mic and tell me how you're doing today?
That'd be a great idea. Today I'm doing great, and I'm over here on Facebook, on YouTube, so if you guys have questions, make sure you ask them. That way we can get you guys the right answers. We can shoot them over and answer them live. So
all right,
let's go
Scott.
ahead and see what's going on today.
Okay. So like Scott said, if you have any questions, just post them to Facebook or YouTube. He'll answer them, or throw them out here to Andy, and Andy will take care of you. So Andy, let's get started. What's going on here today?
So just to let everybody know, we already have the cut 20, cut 40, and cut 60, meaning their outputs, being that. In front of us right here, you've got the cut 60, cut 40 on top on the other cart, and then cut 20 down the bottom.
So you're looking at sheet metal, thin. Yeah. This is going to do up to a 3/8, and
correct.
that's 7/8.
This is going to be 7/8.
Yeah.
This is a 220, 240 volt machine. The cut 40 is a dual voltage machine, meaning 120 up to 240, either one. You have a supplied adapter when you buy it. So you can switch over, so you go to your buddy's house, you need to make some cuts, and he only has 120, you can use that.
And they're all very light.
Yeah, correct. These are all inverter machines. You can just lift by hand. And then the cut 20 is a simply...
That was a nice edit there to the shot where nobody can see me lifting it up. Oh, and now Joe's back down on the VersaCut 20, even though I'm talking about lifting up the VersaCut 40. There we go. We're almost on this. Now he's out of focus. All right. Don't worry, everybody. This is our first live today. We're debuting here live on Facebook and YouTube, so we might have some technical difficulties. So back to the VersaCut 40.
So 40 is dual voltage, so it is probably the most versatile, and it basically can take care of anything that you're going to have on a vehicle. So any frame, sheet metal, that sort of thing. It does just about the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
The cut 60 is going to be almost anything, large items. It still can do sheet metal, but it's just not going to be as precise as, say, the cut 20. The cut 20, the best thing it does is going to be sheet metal, and it's going to be very, very precise.
And we have some sheet metal we've cut with that to show.
Yeah, and we'll actually show you how precise it is, and the very, very thin profile of cutting. So it's actually thinner profile than using the thinnest cutoff wheel on a grinder.
Oh, wow.
And obviously you don't have to do just a straight cut. You can do all sorts of designs.
Yeah.
If you want to go around a radius to cut out a patch panel, you can do that with the cut 20 and all the others, but that's going to be the most accurate of the three.
All right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to start by actually setting up a unit. A lot of guys, we all do it, we just throw away instructions. And set something up, don't get it quite right, think there's something wrong with the machine. It's honestly, the machine's perfectly fine. There's just small tweaks that you might have missed. So what we're going to do is we're going to wheel this over here so Joe can see it. First thing you're going to do is you're going to start plugging in the torch, plugging in the ground. We'll start with the ground. It's a DINS 2.5 connector, so all you do is you push it straight in, you turn it about a quarter turn to lock it in, and now it's not going to come out. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move over to the end of the torch. You're going to have your air supply, your power supply, and then your torch trigger. So we're going to start by air supply because air supply is the most important thing on a plasma cutter.
Now, you say air supply is important. I mean, you need dry air then coming from the compressor as well.
So we're going to go over that in a second when it comes to dry air. But air supply is very, very important. Plasma cutters don't need a ton of air. So you can use a smaller compressor, maybe even down to a 5-gallon. Especially with the Plasma 20, it needs next to no air to actually work. And then you're going to go over here. We're going to leave the power off for now. And we're going to plug in the trigger. Just screw that in real quick. I'm going to come back over here. If you don't need this 100% crazy tight, but we're going to grab a wrench real quick and just slightly snug it up. That way we don't have any leaks. And as you notice, we did not plug in the trigger or the power supply. We're going to leave that undone for now. We're already plugged into air, which you can see back in the back of the unit. And we are plugged into 240 volts, which this is what this unit runs on. And we're going to turn this unit on. So what's going to happen is you're going to take everything out of the box, and you're going to get torch, some consumables on the side. You're also going to notice you actually have a pressure meter when it comes to your air. We suggest you're on 60 psi, but you get an actual flow meter from us to check that, which you can see right here. Our torches are Traffic torches, So they're not, some knockoff from overseas. They are very highly touted torches, and this is going to be your flow meter. The reason why I didn't plug in the power is because you don't want to actually strike an arc through the actual meter.
You just want to blow the air.
Correct. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to take this flow meter, you're going to put it on the end of your torch and start at 60 psi and just see how that went up into the bubble?
Yep.
So that's right where we need to be. So what's going to happen is if you're too high,
and that's right where this is at 60 psi. So is that just a check to make sure everything's reading
that
the
way?
same?
If you want to check this every once in a while, because at some points in time you actually have an air diffuser inside this. If you'd get a crack or you'd actually break it, melt it some way, you'll actually get less or more air.
Okay.
And what's going to happen is if you have too much air, you might actually blow your arc out. If you have too little air, you'll actually destroy consumables.
Yeah.
Air is there to push not only the arc through your piece, but also to cool the torch.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you've got plenty of air, not too much, because it will blow out the arc in certain cases, in extreme cases that is.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure you've got dry, clean air at the right amount. So we can turn that up, turn that down, depending on what your flow meter says. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quick turn this machine off, and then I'm going to actually plug in the power source. I don't want to get any likelihood of ever getting shocked. We want to always side on caution when it comes to that.
Now, a lot of times we've used these. I mean, they're incredibly simple to use, plasma cutter, I would say.
Correct.
And like we've done demonstrations where we'll cut through with this one. We'll cut through 3/4 inch, not change anything, and go over and just cut right through sheet metal.
Yes.
But if you want the absolute best performance, you should make the adjustments.
Absolutely.
We're just trying to show, like if you've watched a lot of our videos, we do that as a demonstration, just to show
what I'm
how
going to do,
simple it is.
Yeah.
But you may not. But if you want more precision, you should make the adjustments for that material.
So we're going to go over just real quick. I'll show you what you're looking at when it comes to consumables. One thing that people don't realize is they say it's a 60 amp machine. I'm going to turn this thing all the way up, and then you can use it for everything.
Yeah.
So with this machine, let's go do 7/8. You can do 7/8. Keep it exactly where it's at, and you can go do sheet metal. It'll still work properly. But the thing is, you actually have a handful of consumables, and these are rated. We overrate our torches for the unit. So you've got an internal nozzle, external nozzle, you get an air diffuser, and you have an electrode.
Or we underrate them.
Yeah, correct.
We underrate them. We don't overrate them.
So
the stuff's underrated is what are you getting at.
So
they perform better than what we're claiming.
Correct.
Actually, they're actually better.
So the Plasma 60 puts out 60 amps at its max. 60% duty cycle, which means it can cut for 6 minutes straight.
Which is pretty good duty cycle.
Correct.
They cut for 6 out of 10 minutes or whatever.
Correct. And this is over a very extended long period of time when it comes to the testing at 104 degrees Fahrenheit ambient temperature.
Okay.
So today in the shop it's 70 degrees about. It's probably over 100% duty cycle, so you don't have to ever stop cutting. But the thing is, these consumables will wear out. This thing is rated for 70 amps, and the machine only puts out 60. But the idea there is your consumables only last so long. The higher amperage you use all the time, the faster they're going to wear out.
Yeah.
So if you're just doing sheet metal, turn it down 20 amps.
Yeah.
It'll cut just as nice, just as fast, but your consumables will last a lot
Save
longer.
yourself some money.
Correct. Consumables are fairly cheap,
Yeah.
but if you want to make sure that your unit lasts as long as humanly possible when it comes to consumables, turn it down based on the chart we give you in the instructions. And if you've thrown out your instructions, go online, go to our website, and print them out yourself, or just go back and forth with your phone or with your PC and take a look. So just to give you an idea, to show you these consumables, if Joe can come in here real quick. Right here is your internal nozzle. This is basically where the arc is striking from. You have your electrode.
Yeah, let Joe get in here tight.
So this nozzle right here is going to be what the actual plasma is coming through. Your actual electrode's what's supplying the plasma. This is what's going to wear out the fastest because that's what's contacting material. That's where all the heat's going to be. You have your electrode. That's going to last a good bit longer than your actual internal nozzle. You have your air diffuser, which actually regulates the amount of air going through the torch. Then you have your outer nozzle. This is what's cooling the torch and giving you the proper amount of airflow. You can see, if Joe can get in there, there is little tiny orifices around the inside here that actually supply air all the way around that. You can see those little guys.
Yeah, there you go.
So once
That's where the air is coming out.
Correct. So once one of those gets plugged up, that's where you're going to start seeing usability issues. If Joe can take a look, this is a mildly used nozzle from a Cut 40. When it comes to actually seeing those little air ports, it's perfectly fine. So all these little guys are good, but you can see on the outside, it's a little bit burnt, but there's nothing wrong with it. If you want to inspect these things, just look on the inside and that brass area, and make sure that there's nothing taking up any of those small spaces. So this one's good. It looks a little beat up. And you have your air diffuser. Same thing. You've got these tiny little orifices throughout. If this thing gets a crack, you're going to want to replace it. One of these will last 10 times longer than your normal nozzle, the outer nozzle. And then here you go. Here's a Cut 60. This one technically would still work fairly well, but you can see you're starting to get some kind of decay on the outside. If you're cutting something very, very thick, what's going to happen is that's going to kind of blow to the side, and eventually you're going to get improper airflow. More airflow will be going out to the side instead of going around equally throughout the outer nozzle. And then here would be an example. See if Joe can get that. It's hard to tell, but you can see a little notch out of this air diffuser right here. So those are just little things to look out for. We get a lot of guys calling in. Scott sees it almost daily of having issues. If you clean up all of these, put some brand new ones in, which we actually supply you with a quick little kit out of the gate with that, with a little air valve.
Yeah.
You get an electrode and you get a nozzle. That way you can quick change it out and get back to working.
Yeah.
The next thing that you're going to want to look out for.
Plus, we offer the whole consumable kit.
Yes,
right?
correct. We have.
Joe can see, yeah.
We've got full kits for our units. When it comes to every single one of these pieces is involved. You get 5 of the electrodes, 5 of the nozzles, 1 of the larger outside nozzles, 2 air diffusers, and then for the Cut 60 you get the guide cage. Cut 40 you do not.
Because usually if you're having problems, it's going to end up being
almost
more
99%
consumable.
of the time it's going to be consumable.
It's usually going to be, well, you've got some other examples here of ones that are all burnt out right here. Right?
Correct, yeah.
And some of the
Here's some more worse burn up ones. Here is a pile of torches that we've had guys, I don't know what's wrong with my machine.
Well, maybe because you burnt back through the one, it looks like there?
Yeah. This one right here, you can see it actually got torched all the way back, so you can only imagine what the actual nozzles
So
would
all the
look like.
consumables are probably destroyed at that
Correct.
point. And you're not cutting through your metal anymore, and it's just the heat's building up and coming back over.
With this, it's very, very apparent you've got an issue.
Yeah.
It's not always the case, though. With this one, this guy might have, everything looked great on the outside. Eventually, he just neglected it, replaced everything, put it all back together really quickly, and didn't notice that it has a big notch out of it right here. If Joe can see that, there is literally a chunk missing on the inside of that nozzle. This is from a Cut 40. Something to highlight here, since we are here right now, what happens is when you actually pull the trigger, there is a little detent here and here. That's actually what puts the arc through the unit. These two have to contact this little rim right here. And what happens sometimes is guys will use these a long period of time, and they'll get a slight amount of dirt or grime there. What happens is they're not actually making contact anymore. So what I've actually found is when it's on nice and tight, I've literally just grabbed it and just worked it back and forth a couple times just to kind of get some more.
And you get that contact.
Yeah,
again.
get that contact. Or you can just take a quick little Scotch-Brite pad and just clean them
Rub
up.
it up.
Same thing on the actual the little electrode pieces on each side of the unit. So that's a really, really simple tip. We've had people call in frustrated. They haven't used their unit in a really, really long time. It's sat and it just got kind of dirty. So all they do, cleaned it up. They were here in R&D. The guy got nice and happy and left after we cut through some 7/8.
Yeah.
Another one you can just see this thing's just toasted. When it comes down to it, it's just neglect.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple. And when it comes down to, if you want to keep working for a long period of time with these units, just grab one of these kits.
Yeah.
They're really, really cheap. And that way, if you have some issues, it's not cutting as quickly as you'd like it to, it's not cutting as accurately, swap out everything and get back to cutting and really nice, clean.
So if you're having any issues, I think what we're trying to get at is just check the consumables, try replacing them first.
Correct.
Because typically that is the problem, especially if you can actually see it. If
Yeah.
it looks like a problem, it probably is. So, get the consumables kit, replace it, and you'll probably be cutting perfectly fine again.
Yeah, and if you do go above and beyond and actually destroy a torch, we have torches, we have ground cables.
All of our units have a 3-year warranty.
Correct.
Too. So that's another great thing. All the plasma cutters, 3-year warranty. So you know.
And when it comes down to the ground clamps, something that you got to watch out for, you can see that a lot of guys don't actually have, a lot of different companies don't have this nice copper strap. I like to do is to put this piece of the strap on the actual unit or on the piece from cutting itself. It adds a lot more sufficient ground. You'll see these start to break apart. It's still going to work, but when it comes down to welding, MIG, TIG, arc, or even plasma, you want the best ground humanly possible. We always suggest not necessarily just ground to the table you're working with, ground to the piece.
Ground what you're cutting.
You can get 20-30% better cutting if you're grounded to the actual piece itself, because there could be dirt and grime on the actual table, and eventually by the time it makes its way all the way through the piece, you might not have a great ground. You might not be getting all that amperage that you asked for out of the machine. So ground's another big one. The last one we're going to quick go over before we start doing some cutting is clean and dry air. If you look at the back of these machines, what we're going to do is we'll actually come over here to the Cut 40. We'll wheel it in front of Joe so we can show you exactly what we're talking about. So in the back of the unit, you're going to see where your air supply is. Not only is that just the air supply, but there's actually a self, this is actually a air or water separator right here. Once you plug the air in, this little piece will actually extend and seal. Once you unplug it, it'll actually automatically drain, which is great. It's a really good feature that our plasmas have. The only issue is when that drains, it's going to drip drain. If you're ever using for a long period of time and you don't have the driest air possible, which is very, very important for these machines, you can actually pull this thing over to the side, and if you push this in, the air will be pressurized from your power, from your air source, and it'll spray out all the condensation. I would suggest doing that after maybe every 20 minutes or half an hour. The more often you do it, the better. But it will drip out automatically, but I would suggest doing it when it's pressurized.
Uh-oh. I don't think I've ever done that to mine. It cuts great.
So you're one of those guys, right?
I got the 60. I've actually never drained that. So
like I said before, they automatically drain themselves.
Yeah.
But if you want to get all condensation out, do it while it's pressurized. The easiest way to do it is just get a screwdriver and just press on it real quick.
Press on it.
Your
While you
finger
have the
might
air
not
line
be strong
hooked up.
enough to actually push it in because it is under whatever your air supply is. It could be 120 psi, it could be 90.
Yeah.
And then it regulates down the machine. So it could be more difficult to press that in. So
I'll make sure I do that tonight when I get home. Because I haven't done it in 2 years.
do you want to move over to Scott? Do we have any questions?
I guess we should check in with Scott. Sure. As always, if you have any questions, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, type them in, and Scotty here will answer them or throw them over to us. How's it going, Scott?
Not too bad. So one of the questions we got recently was, are these things that you can also pick up your consumables locally too if you need to?
Yeah, there are a handful of parts houses when it comes to your local welding supply store. These are Trafamit torches, so you can get these things from anybody. More than likely, we're going to have the best prices because we sell thousands of these machines.
But this isn't proprietary stuff. I mean, this is a common.
Absolutely.
If you buy from us, you're not screwed.
Yeah.
Like you can go get the stuff somewhere else in an emergency, or you can get it at Eastwood.com.
Yeah, in many cases, welding supply stores are only open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. So it might not be open on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So what I really suggest, as soon as you buy a machine, at least buy one of these kits. But you can get them at a local store. If you can get off on your lunchtime, run over to a store and grab it, and we will probably have the better price.
Yeah.
But,
That way you're not
any
locked
other
down.
questions there, Scott?
The other one too, they just were talking about what they can do for making sure that they keep it cut nice and straight. So we have a couple different attachments. We have the circle attachment. We also have a magnetic attachment or a magnetic strip that can allow you to guide and cut right along. So just something else to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, while we're at it,
yeah,
should we show
Joe wants
some
to
of
come over and take a look at them.
Some of the stuff that we have available, like basically everything you need, from safety equipment to stuff that's going to help you cut a little better.
We'll start with with this guy right here, this is your guide. It's basically you can do circles, you can do straight lines, you can do almost anything, and what it's going to do is it's going to keep your plasma cutter the exact amount and distance off the material, so that way it's going to keep your consumables lasting longer. We do give you drag tips with your machine, but this gives you like a slight amount of lift off the machine, off the cutting piece itself. So what it does is it keeps that distance, makes it so there's no molten metal coming up at your tip, and then you can roll it straight, or you can keep your torch out the end and then move and do a circle. You can actually cut, or you can unscrew this section right here and move it any which way you want. It actually turns inside, so you can do all sorts of different designs. If you want to do different size circles, you can change the distance in this little piece, the little pivoting point. You can either do a sharp edge and hold it, or if you wanted to, you can actually unscrew this section. You can drill a pilot hole and actually put this through the piece and just drag it around and do a perfect circle.
And we have videos on our YouTube channel using it, cutting perfect circles.
Yep.
The thing works great.
Yeah, so when it comes down to using, nobody's going to have a hole saw that's 10 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be able to do that. And they tend to walk all over the place. So if you do a plasma cutter, you can actually get a better circle using that. We also have our magnetic tape guide, which one side being magnetic, so you can put it on any piece of steel or stainless steel, move it around. It is bendable, so you can make different designs. If you want to use it on aluminum, the opposite side is adhesive. So we all know that aluminum isn't magnetic, so we make sure you're set up there. This is kind of a consumable, but it is very, very
what's
cheap.
What's nice, we were using it on Cody's Camaro because you can follow an arc.
Correct.
As opposed to like a lot of times, you know, if you don't cut straight, a lot of times you put a guide on, maybe a piece of angle iron, a piece of flat, like whatever it is, so you can clamp it on there and cut. But if you've got a fence, like, well, any body panel, almost nothing on a car's flat, you get it round and you got to cut something out, you can put it and it's going to follow that contour.
Correct.
And then, you know, it acts as a nice guide.
So if you ever buy a replacement body panel, make it yourself, what you can do is you can put it up to the actual body panel itself, take your Sharpie, trace it, and then use that to guide yourself.
Yeah.
So you can cut one side, move it to the next piece, cut the other side, and that way when you put your new piece in, it'll form exactly in the spot you just cut out. Really, really handy. And you're not always going to be able to do a straight line with a piece of angle iron. So.
And you know, face shields, plasma shades. We have a welding helmet that'll go down to a plasma shade.
4.
Right? Yeah, it goes down to 4. Gloves and a welding blanket. We call them welding blankets, but we use them as much for plasma cutting as anything to protect all the sparks. Right now we have one on the floor, we're just protecting our logo. So, and before we cut, do we want to show off those the difference between the 20 and the 60 on that sheet metal?
Correct.
While Joe's over there?
So Joe, if you want to come in here real quick.
And while Joe's getting set up, if you have any questions, just post them. Scott will answer them. We'll throw them out here to Andy, and we're going to start cutting here in a minute.
So Joe, you can see this. When it comes to cutting out something that you want to get really intricate, really, really thin cut, you can see right here, this is the cut 20 right there, because that is a 0.65 millimeter tip. So it's substantially skinnier than the 1.2 millimeter tip for the cut 60. By no means is this a bad cut. But when it comes down to it, the cut 60 is meant for, you know, heavy cutting. I would suggest doing anything 1/4 inch and above with a 60. But when it comes down to doing really, really intricate stuff, cut 20 is fantastic. You're going to get by with cut 60. It's a great machine, but the cut 20 is built for this.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it's meant for. You can see how much thinner that is, and it's just much neater.
It looks like it's great for sheet metal crafts. Correct. Joe the other day brings in this, like, where'd you find that? It was like a rooster cut out of sheet metal. Thing's awesome. And it had all these real fine cuts in it. And a VersaCut 20 would make them, you know, like if you wanted to do that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Another thing just to talk about when it comes to how we did this here, when you're doing sheet metal, you want to move actually fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. The longer you sit on a piece, the wider the actual cut's going to be.
Put more heat into it. Right?
Correct. And it's just naturally going to kind of widen itself. Yeah. So you strike your arc and you move quick. So don't slow down. If you ever see the actual piece, the arc spray up, that means you're going too fast, so slow down a little bit. But try to keep a constant speed. If Joe
it's kind of like welding. You'll hear the sound and you'll see it. You'll see all the sparks coming out the right, and it sounds right.
And what we're going to do is we're actually going to show you doing it the wrong way on these pieces here in a second. So this right here is going to be a little bit of showing how speed comes into play. If you can get it really, really close into here, Joe, this is perfect speed all throughout with a cut 60. This is about 1/4 inch plate, and you can see the sparks going straight down the little lines, and this is near dead straight. If you actually look on the other side, we're going a little too fast, we weren't consistent, so you can see the actual cuts are kind of on an angle. You're always going to get that to a slight amount, but you can see when we had a little hiccup here, it widened and it actually dug in a little bit more. So try to keep a really clean surface, and whatever you're using as your guide, if you're using one of our guides or you're just using a piece of angle iron, make sure it doesn't have any little pieces stuck out on the edge, because what it's going to do, it's going to throw you off, or it's going to slow you down, and it's going to make your cut potentially what it looks like all the way down in here. There's nothing wrong with that cut.
That bad cut still looks pretty nice.
It does. There's nothing wrong with this cut, but if you want something that you don't have to grind at all, making sure that you have a really consistent speed, and test a couple pieces before you get into the vehicle. If you're going to cut a frame piece, you want a really nice square cut all around the frame to then do a fish plate or something along those lines. Test something on scrappy on the side. If you ever make cuts, keep them in a little bin, and that way you can test before you go, and you don't want to ruin anything. So definitely do that.
So now we start cutting?
Yeah, let's start cutting. What we're going to do is we're going to jump right into some 1/4 inch plate here. This is our plasma table right here. We have a couple different versions of this. We have the cut and weld that goes on a fender stand. Incredibly cost effective and really, really easy to use. The reason why this has all the slats here is to let all your sparks and everything move straight down. You can move across these. What I do suggest, if you're doing a perfectly straight line, to put your piece on here. So we're going to take this piece in general, put it this way. If we want to make a cut this way, to do it in between the slats. Because if you want to make that perfect cut, that you don't want to have any, like a difference in thickness, basically.
Or anything that prevents it from blowing out the bottom.
Correct. So there's nothing wrong with the way these things are designed, but if you want to be as efficient as possible, you want to cut this way. You can cut straight this way. As you can see, there's already little pieces chunked out, which you can replace these slats. We have little kits.
You can flip them around. You just take them out.
Yep.
And go like that. And then
just flip them around. So now we've got nice clean side right there. But as I said, if you want to make it a perfect cut, go with these. You're not always going to be able to do that. That's why it's designed the way it is. You can replace these very easily, and you can buy the replacement kits on our website. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into this. I turn the machine on. We are actually going to get our safety gear on. I would always suggest to wear gloves. Always wear at least shade 4. You'll be able to see well that way. If you have a welding helmet that goes down that low, definitely use it. Welding jacket, I mean, honestly, there's going to be sparks. If you're not moving the right amount of speed, it'll spray some sparks up on you. So just make sure you're wearing something that's going to keep you protected. What I'm going to do is just in the interest of time, I'm going to grab this piece, and we're going to show you what happens when you're using a guide that isn't perfectly flat. Down here, it looks pretty good. We've got some little pieces that are sticking out. What that's going to do is it's actually going to catch the actual edge of our plasma cutting guide, and it'll actually slow us up a little bit. So we're going to get in. Looks like we're all set up. We're actually at 60 amps. We're just going to run it as is, and show you how easy it is to go through 1/4 inch. And this is maybe about 8 inches long, so we're going to be pretty quick about it. All right, if you could hear that, you could tell that I kind of slowed up and stopped.
that one little hiccup.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. So I don't know if Joe can kind of come over here real quick and see this. So you've got a really nice clean cut here, and all of a sudden we stopped and a hiccup. If you see our guide, that's exactly where that little edge was that made us kind of move around. Same thing here. It actually slowed us up to the point where it might not have actually cut all the way through because of that little hiccup. We just break it right off. You can see exactly what I was talking about right here, where that hiccup was, and then down here, incredibly clean. So that's exactly what we're looking out for. the less cleaning, unless you want to use an angle grinder, make sure you use one of our guides and keep that consistent, consistent speed. So that took all of a couple seconds to get through. As we said before, really nice and clean. And then here's where you're
almost no grinding, even if
yeah.
there's little hiccups.
And if you guys see, there's a little bit of pieces on the edge. Literally, all you do is put your glasses down, take another piece, and you just break them off. So it's really nice and easy. No grinding necessary. It's a really, really clean way to go about cutting things.
Yeah. So now what are we cutting? Anything else?
We can jump over to 1/2 inch. We can jump over to 5/8. Might as well 5/8 because,
Yeah.
why not?
Scott, how are we? If you have any questions, Scott's over here. Scott, is that masked so people don't see you looking at the return monitor instead of the camera?
Exactly. I was looking
It
at the
allows
wrong
you to
one.
look at it and nobody knows what you're
No one
actually
knows.
looking at.
Or it's also to demonstrate our newest mask. It's for plasma cutting. I mean, look
Yeah.
at that. Doesn't get much better than that. Full face protection.
Do we have any more questions yet?
We have your
Or
boots
you're
look
just
too shiny.
you haven't been monitoring it. You've been
I've been
screwing around with
monitoring
the
it.
face shield.
Your boots look too shiny, they say.
What?
We need to get them dirty.
Who said that?
A lot of them, they really like it, learning
Give
a
them
lot.
my email address.
Stuff like that. What's that? But yeah, definitely keep your questions coming. And
Yeah, but not the harassment. I'd prefer not the harassment, just the questions. That'd be better. Thank you. Oh yeah, they kind of do look shiny. Huh. Yeah, yeah.
see, at least now you agree. You need to do some cutting to.
Oh, they're not. I don't. Yeah. We'll see if I stand next to this. Oh, let's get back to cutting. Enough
We're going to
about
jump
fashion.
into 5/8 here.
Yeah.
And what I need to show you is when you start, take your time. And this is where you're going to actually see that, that kind of arc. It's almost like a J shape of the arc going backwards. So just take your time, move slow, and don't be frustrated that it's not going through like butter. It actually will, but to the point where you just want to make sure that you don't go over it once and you leave almost looks like a gouge in it. That way you have to go back over again. You
Yeah.
might open it up. So take it slow. And always do a test before you go and try to cut down a bridge with your
Yeah.
Plasma 60. So let's fire this thing up, and we'll do 5/8. So something I want to show right there when it comes to troubleshooting, it didn't actually go all the way through.
Yeah.
So more than likely, we take this thing apart and take a look at it and see what actually happened. We might have used it up. We were cutting a bunch of these pieces earlier today. You can see, if Joe can take a look at it.
Huh.
See, we moved too fast.
Yeah.
So what happened is, if I can roll this over, we only went through about halfway, and we puddled up the edge, and you can see the end. This is what we were talking about before. You actually get like a J shape. That shows your speed right there. We were much too fast when actually cutting out this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to replace our consumables really quick, just to show that when it comes to usage.
And show how to replace them?
Yep.
All right. So like we said, typically, it just comes down to a little bit of technique, which is maybe moving a little too fast or a little too slow.
Correct.
Or consumables. So, we've been using this plasma cutter a lot, and so we're just going to switch out the consumables and do some more cutting.
So here we go, right out of the gate. You can see what happened. This is our electrode. As we took this apart, this electrode was actually loose. So this was not tightened down properly. And what we actually give you
Want me to play with it?
is we give you this little wrench, which you slide it over and you tighten it down. Only do a slight amount of tension against it. That way, next time you take it apart, it's not going to be stuck. So we just really tighten that up a little bit. So what was probably happening there is that was creating an inconsistent arc because this thing was probably moving around. So we're tightening it back up again. And we're going to look over our our other consumables. Everything looks good on your outer nozzle. Our inner nozzle, not really all that worn, but you know what, we're going to replace it anyways just because we have our little kit. And then you have our inner diffuser. There's actually a slight amount of almost like a corrosion looking thing right there. We'll end up replacing that one also. We're going to throw these all back together. So we will grab a new piece and we're just going to put it all back together as Randy walks back over.
So we're having some technical camera problems.
Okay.
We're down to one camera. It's only Joe right now.
Oh boy.
So he's happy to hear that.
So as you see, we're going to put this piece back on. Everything looks fine on it. We're going to take our brand new internal nozzle, slide that guy on, and then we're going to take our external, it slides right through, and we're just going to tighten it down. That's it. And that's the way it should look.
Nice and shiny and new.
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll fire this thing back up again, and we'll put our gloves back on to make sure we're protected.
Now, I may have never drained anything out of the moisture catch there, but I do change my consumables. Oh, we're back up. Okay, we got the other camera. I don't know what happened.
All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of a guide. Quick check our pressure. Looks like we were a little bit low, so we'll get back into it.
Now you can see this time it's flowing out the bottom. And you can probably hear it.
All right. Now always watch out, this is going to be fairly hot when all said and done. And if you didn't notice, at the very, very end, I kept the same amount of speed as all the way through.
Yeah.
And the issue there is at the very end, a lot of times it does that J shape as you're moving. And in the front, you can see we're all the way through.
Yep.
In the back, you can see
just
we've
that
got
last
really,
little,
really slight
yeah.
amount. So to make sure at that very last bit, just slow down. Or something that I like to do is as I'm coming to the very, very end, I actually move my torch up a little bit. That way that kind of J shape almost straightens out and it breaks off. Honestly, when it comes down to it, there's not much material there. So all you can do is move your piece to the end. You can take an adjustable wrench, you can take a hammer, and you can just break it right off.
That's a really nice cut.
There really wasn't much there, but just as a tip, honestly, you just want to move, do a little oscillation with the torch, or slow down because of that J shape that we talked about.
Joe can get in and look how, I mean, really take a look at this cut.
So that is 5/8 thick.
And you can see the top edge, you know, how nice and...
Yeah, if you can, what I'll do is I'll get this a little bit closer for Joe. So you can see the bottom, it has that little swoop back.
Right here.
And right at the end, you can tell that's where we didn't actually make it all the way through. So just as a quick tip, just kind of arc your torch a little bit at the end, or just slow down. If you do slow down, it might actually blow a little bit wider arc.
Yeah.
So you might actually make it a little bit wider in your cut. So maybe not do that. Actually do that little edge with the end of the torch.
So basically, if you're having problems, like right there, it was just replace the consumables and move a little slower.
Honestly, we probably didn't have to replace the consumables. We just had to tighten that.
Just tighten them up.
So it was a nice little thing, a little problem for us to have, you know, to show you guys.
So basically, that's what, you know, if you're having any problems, check your consumables.
Yeah.
You know, replace them if necessary, and then just check out how fast you're going.
And the last thing we're going to do...
There's not much that can go wrong.
Correct.
Really.
Yeah, the last thing we're going to do right before, you know, as we're going to get some of questions out of the way, if anybody has them.
Do we have any? We should check in with Scotty, see if we have any more questions.
Yeah, someone who had the 40 said they didn't get that little wrench, and just to quick clarify, the reason being is 40, the electrode actually drops in and doesn't thread it, so you wouldn't need that.
Correct.
So you're not actually missing anything. Just want to fill you in on that one. And then one other quick tech tip, I don't know if you'll cover it or not. Sounds silly, but when you're using your plasma cutter, if you run into any snags, as we're kind of giving you things to look for, make sure you have the right ground clamp connected, because it's very easy when you have a plasma cutter and a welder on the same cart to accidentally grab the wrong ground clamp. So, seen that done, just want to
That's another thing that actually that I would like to talk about. We've done it here. when you're working on, say, a floor, and you've got your ground on just a random bolt in a floor, you're cutting out a floor for a new floor pan, your Cody just put in a new AMD floor in his Camaro. So what ended up happening is that ground clamp was on the outside of the car. And then you do a cut on the inside, and you actually ended up cutting your ground out completely. So the circuit wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there looking at your plasma cutter, you know, what the heck is wrong with this thing? Nothing. You honestly, as you're working, you can actually cut away the portion that you're trying to cut. So just something to look out for. It might sound silly, but it happens.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do real quick is I'm going to use our magnetic tape, and we are going to cut some
sheet metal.
Some sheet metal. Don't have a pair of clippers on me right now, so we're just going to drop that down there. We're going to put our safety gear back on. And as I said before, we're going to keep our pressure just about where we normally have it. But I'm going to drop this down to about 30 amps. It doesn't need to be anything crazy for this. The only reason I'm keeping it at 30 amps and not all the way down to 20, because I'm going to move pretty quick. So we're going to make sure we've got the power to move fast. And we'll make a real nice cut here. So make sure that our magnetic strip is all the way down. We're going to start.
Now you can definitely tell you moved a lot faster.
Correct.
On that.
So turn the machine off, move our guide out of the way. As you can see, I actually did a little bit of a curve at the end, but if Joe, you can get real close, I'll walk out here to show you. That is almost a perfectly straight edge. And the key for doing sheet metal is move quick. Don't be afraid to really move fast, and turn it down slightly, but make sure your air is still at that 60 psi. That way you're getting the cooling of the torch regardless of the amperage you're at. And there is a chart based on the thicknesses in our instructions. So if you don't have it anymore, you might have thrown it away, get it online. You can call on the tech, they'll show you where to go, or just go on the product page of any one of the machines that you purchased. And that way you can get the right settings.
Well, thanks a lot. So
you bet.
if you guys are interested in any of these, we'll check back with Scott in a couple minutes here, but if you're interested in any of these plasma cutters, 20, 40, and 60 amp, for sheet metal, for the 40 is for, that's
basically anything.
Yeah, and then the 60 is going to go all the way up to 7/8. They all have a 3-year warranty, and they all have a 10-foot ground cable and a 20-foot torch cable.
Which brings up another product that if you want, we actually have ground cable extensions.
Okay.
So if you want to keep your plasma cutter all the way in the corner of the shop and you want to work 20 feet away, we have little 10-foot extensions. You can use them for the MIGs, the TIGs, and the plasmas. And
so
all it is,
further.
It's a DINS connector on both ends. One goes right in the machine, the other one goes to the end of this of your ground. They're properly sized so that you don't lose any performance. And that way your ground is exactly where you need to be with the actual cutting.
Because it is nice. We're working on Cody's Camaro. You set up and then you go around the other side of the car. You don't have to wheel the car around. You don't have to unplug it, find another outlet. You can just keep working the whole way around the car.
In most cases,
the torch cable's so long.
Yeah, in most cases you're using the torch pretty far away. You can just clip on the bumper of the car and you can be 20 feet away. But if you do need the ground to be farther, you can get that extension. And almost all the pieces that we showed you are all available on Eastwood.com.
All right, well, before we close out, we'll check in with Scotty C one more time. Our ratings always go up around this time.
Sure, so I have 2 more questions. One I'll quick address, I think you did, but I'm not sure, I'll double check. So they saw the guide that's on the torch on the 60, just holds it up off, but certainly all of the 40 and the 60 both have drag tips, so feel free to also drag right across the surface. You don't need to use that guide. And then the last one I'll shoot to Andy, just because it's a good one for you. Will this also cut aluminum?
Yes, it will. Aluminum is a little bit harder to cut than steel is. You would think it wouldn't be because it's soft, but just because of the properties of the aluminum, it doesn't cut quite as clean. So you just need to take your time, make sure you keep that consistent speed as we talked about with steel. It just takes a little bit longer, and it'll actually leave almost little kind of hairs in the end. So you won't have that little clean thing you can kind of just knock off.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit, like, not necessarily dirtier, but it won't look quite as nice. These will cut through aluminum
And you can cut through rusty metal with no problem either.
As long as your ground is...
Yeah, as long as you have a good ground. You may have to clean up the metal where your ground is. But we've cut through, Cody's Camaro is mostly rust, actually, and we didn't have any problem cutting through everything on that.
Yep. So there are certain areas where you will go through some rust, where you might have some pockets that are opened up. Your arc might stop. You just restart once you get to the next piece. So just something to be aware of, that if you are having some of that trouble, that it does come up.
Cool.
So.
Well, thanks a lot, Andy.
You bet.
So if you have any questions, post them to Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to keep answering them even after this live has ended. And if you've used any of these plasma cutters, don't be afraid to post a review and let everybody else know what you think of them. So, well, thanks a lot, and I guess I'll see you in September.
Absolutely.
All right.